I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with an amazing author. Her name is Randi McKinnon, and she has written a fantastical tale called The Magic Stones. And she is inviting readers into a whimsical world filled with mystery and enchantment. Through the eyes of young explorers, Molly and Pete, the author weaves a journey towards a magical cave unfound by their fathers, where dark ponds and glittering flowers conceal, sleeping fairies. You're going to want to read this one, going to want to read it to the kids for sure. We'd like to thank this very talented author for joining us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Inks and Bindings for helping us put her in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like her by subscribing to our channel. Randi, thanks so much for being our guest today.
My pleasure entirely.
So nice to see you. You live in a beautiful place, Eugene, Oregon. We talked about that when we were talking before the interview began. Do you think your beautiful surroundings helped inspire this story in some way?
Yeah, in essence, it probably did.
Yeah.
Because I got woods and hills and everything else around me, and that's how I grew up in another country.
Absolutely. But you've created your own world here. Where did you get the inspiration for the story?
My grandmother used to tell stories when I was little to me, and because I wasn't allowed to go out after dark. And so she just sat there by the fire and enticed me with her stories. And that's how it started. I just took one of those and embellished on it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's kind of a lost art of just sitting with your kid and making up a story. My father did it with me. I did it with my kids. I used to tell them a little morality tale of like, one day, Devin and Jillian were sleeping and they said, "Hey, do you want to go out and explore the neighborhood?" And start from there about how they did what dad told them not to do and that kind of thing. But I love the characters Molly and Pete, and they kind of work as kind of an every kid for the kids who are reading. It kind of gives a vicarious experience, I think, to your children readers and your children listeners.
Yes, you're correct.
And I guess that was the point of it. The illustrations are pretty amazing too. Tell us about those.
The illustrations I had problems with because I had to pay for somebody to do it. I can just draw stick people.
Gotcha.
So, and the people were from another country and did not understand what trolls and fairies was all about. So it was very generic when I got back, and it took 6 to 7 times bantering back and forth on the computer before I finally said, I was tired of it. I said, yes. But I still wasn't quite satisfied, but it's good enough.
I think it's very good. I think it's very cute. I think it captures your imagination. So I think it's more than good enough. I think it's very good. That's for sure. I know it was inspired by stories that your grandmother told you. Was your mother or your grandmother told you?
My grandmother.
Your grandmother told you. But writing this book, did it take you a while to write it? Tell me about the writing process.
Yes, it took me about 6 months because I had to get details in for the children to understand. I think it's so important that we read and not explaining to the children, just the words has got to have detail in them.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to do.
Well, you succeeded, that's for sure. Tell us about the tiny fairies in the story and the role they play in it.
The fairies came with the dragon. Under the scales of the dragon, they were sailing along. And so they have a moral also that they are telling to the children, not verbally, mentally. They're conveying. And so the head fairy are telling their tale to the children while they're sitting there, and that's entailed in the story how she cried and the tears became diamonds.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's an amazing part of the story and very, very magical for kids as well. The
Yes.
glittering appearance of flowers is also an important part of the story. Tell us about that, the flowers in the second cave.
That is fairy dust.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they have to spread it to be magic.
Mm-hmm.
If the dust isn't there, they're not magic.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Magic is important for sure. Have you read this book to any children?
Yes, I read it in a I started with a third grade classroom. I read it in, and they took it and ran with it. They thought that was really nice. Then I read it to a fifth grader, and they said, "How can this be? It's not real." See, they have already minimized their imagination, and that's bad news.
That's what school does. You go into school as a kindergartner and you're filled with ideas and dreams and wonder and imagination. And slowly but surely, the teachers take it out of you, grab it, and throw it away and make you like everyone else, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the unfortunate part of school, is that everybody is supposed to conform, and conformity isn't needed when you're an artist. Well, nobody grabbed that creativity out of your brain, because obviously you're still a very creative, imaginative person. That's for sure. And have you envisioned this perhaps as like an animated series or a movie that children could watch?
I would love to have this in a movie, a real movie, not a cartoon movie.
Yeah.
With a real understanding of the moral, bring the moral from the book, which is hidden in the pages, to the screen, and let that come out. I would love to have that.
I think that would be wonderful. Tell us, what is the moral of the story?
The moral of this story is to share. Don't forget to share, and don't forget kindness. That's what the fairies are trying to say. Remember kindness.
Yes, absolutely. And why do you make it that Pete and Molly can find these wondrous caves? Their fathers knew about the caves, but never actually found them. Was that something about the disparity of age and believing and imagination?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can take you to that place in Norway, where I'm from. Exactly where all my books are made. They come from.
Wonderful, wonderful. Have you written more than one book?
Yes, I've written another one as well. And that's set in the same village. And that's called Katie and the Troll Queen. Gotcha. And that's an entirely different story altogether.
Wonderful. I would think Norway lends itself to these fantastical tales and these legends and these myths.
Yes.
Yeah, it just seems like that kind of country. It seems like it's rooted in the culture, right?
Very much so. And the stories of trolls and fairies and dragons are still going on in the children's minds over there, although the children have become modern.
It's a shame. We don't want them to be modern.
Right.
Spend your childhood dreaming about giants and dragons and fairies and fairy dust and all of the impossible things that people tell you are impossible. Because if you believe in impossible things, then nothing is impossible. And that's a great moral of this story as well.
Yes, indeed it is.
Absolutely. When's the last time you were in Norway?
2008.
Oh, okay, not that long ago.
No, long enough, but not that long.
I think you're due for another trip. What do you say?
Oh, and how?
Absolutely. Some beautiful, fresh, cool Norway air would be wonderful too. Yep,
Would be nice.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you have written a magical book. It is called The Magic Stones. It takes readers into a wonderful world filled with mystery and enchantment, and it is told through the eyes of Molly and Pete. And it is a journey your kids will never forget, and you will love sharing with them. Randi, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
My pleasure entirely.
Pleasure was all
Nice,
mine.
nice to meet you, Mr. Logan.
Nice meeting you as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.